Here are 5 lesser-known signs that you might have adrenal fatigue that no one talks about. And I think they're going to surprise you. And stick around to the end of the video because I'm also going to share what happened this past summer in North America that exposed how truly epidemic adrenal fatigue has become for millions of people, especially women. So everyone talks about the main symptoms of adrenal fatigue, which are primarily issues with the stress hormone cortisol. It could be low blood sugar, inflammation, chronic pain, weight gain, depression. But the adrenals produce other hormones, not just cortisol. And when you have adrenal fatigue, these other hormone levels also become out of balance, and each individual imbalance causes its own set of symptoms. So the hormone I want to talk to you about today is called aldosterone, because this imbalance causes these 5 life-altering symptoms that are often misdiagnosed and mistreated. Most doctors just dismiss these symptoms outright. Aldosterone is an adrenal hormone that controls the 2 most basic minerals in our body, sodium and potassium. It acts on the kidneys to help us hold on to sodium and let go of potassium into the urine. So when patients reach out to us, they're usually in the middle to late stage of adrenal fatigue, and that's when aldosterone levels tend to be lower. So what happens is when the adrenals are weak and the aldosterone output is too low, well, sodium is basically salt. And in the body, water follows salt, right? It's osmosis. So with adrenal fatigue, low aldosterone, we can't hold on to salt or sodium, which means we can't hold on to water, which leads us to the first unique adrenal fatigue sign that you might have: frequent urination. Now, for decades, I was told that I had a small bladder because I had to pee all the time. And it was annoying. I mean, it made long car rides really unbearable because we had to stop every hour. It was hard to sit through a ball game or a concert without having to make multiple trips to the bathroom. Plus, I'd have to wake up so many times during the night, and then I'd have trouble getting back to sleep. It was pretty disruptive to my life. But once I discovered and fixed the adrenal issues, it all went away. And then I kind of realized how ridiculous the concept of me having a small bladder was. I'm pretty sure all my organs are an appropriate size for my body. It was silly, but I didn't know better. Now, the second symptom of adrenal fatigue related to aldosterone and water has to do with blood volume. Now, blood volume is mostly made up of water. Red blood cells in there, but it's mostly water. So if you follow this logic, if we've got weak adrenals, low aldosterone, can't hold on to salt, can't hold on to water, water's mostly blood volume, you get low blood volume, and then guess what? Low blood pressure. So in my initial conversations with new patients, it is very common for us to talk about blood pressure, and they'll say to me, "Oh, I've had low blood pressure ever since I can remember." To which I respond, that means you've had this adrenal problem for that long. It's just that nobody identified it as an early warning sign. Now, when there's low blood volume and low blood pressure, there's simply not enough blood to go all around the body. It's like an engine running a quart shy on oil. And this effect is strongest in the brain, especially when we're vertical. So as soon as we stand up, gravity acts on our blood and tries to push all of our blood out of our brain into our feet. And if that happened, we'd pass out every time we stood up. Now, directly related to this low blood volume is the third sign that you might have adrenal fatigue, especially when you stand up: lightheadedness. When our blood volume is compromised, it's mostly felt in the brain because it's at the top of our body. It's like the elevators not getting to the top floor. So we tend to get lightheaded fairly often, especially if we stand up too quickly. So we've got frequent urination, low blood pressure, and lightheadedness. Those are the first 3 surprising symptoms you might have adrenal fatigue. Now, the last 2 symptoms related to low aldosterone and compromised adrenals from stress over time are also associated with this issue of low sodium. We know that water follows salt in the body. We already talked about it, right? So if salt is low, we can't hold on to water, so we tend to pee it out. And this causes the 4th chronic interesting symptom: chronic dehydration. Anywhere and everywhere, not just superficially on the skin or the lips, but also dehydrated at a cellular level. And when cells are dehydrated, they simply don't work efficiently. They're pro-inflammatory, irritable, and edgy. So any sign of dehydration is also a possible symptom that you might have adrenal fatigue. Now, the 5th unique sign that you might have adrenal fatigue was made profoundly evident this past summer with the heat waves that most of us endured, in this country at least, and it's one of the most commonly talked about symptoms. So when it's hot, the body has to maintain this very narrow temperature range. So in an effort to cool off, the body sends our blood to the periphery of our body, to the skin, and then we sweat. And when the sweat evaporates, it cools our skin and the blood underneath, reducing our temperature. But if you're like the majority of my new patients with adrenal fatigue, with the blood volume issues, not enough blood, you've suffered from heat intolerance. And it can actually happen at temperatures that aren't hot for the majority of people too. So if you don't tolerate the heat well, you just might have adrenal fatigue too.